Well, Edward Galvin was the co-founder of the Columban Missionaries. He was ordained in 1909 for the Diocese of Cork. Now, at the time, the diocese was oversubscribed, so he went to Brooklyn, and he spent 3 years in the parish of the Holy Rosary in Brooklyn. And it was here that he met Father John Fraser, who was a missionary to China. He met Father John Fraser in January in 1912, and Father Fraser told him all about his mission, and Galvin was very inspired. And in February of 1912, he headed off with Fraser for China. In 1916, he returned to Ireland, and along with John Blowick, who was a professor in Maynooth at the time, they founded the Maynooth Mission to China, which was later to be named the Missionary Society of St. Columban. The Maynooth Mission to China received approval from the Irish bishops in 1916, and they received official recognition in 1918. In 1920, Galvin returned with the first group of Columban fathers to China, to the province of Hanyang. And it was here that he worked until 1952, when all the missionaries were expelled from China. Galvin had to leave China and came back to Ireland. Now, at this stage, he was actually quite sick, so he died of leukemia in 1956 in Ireland, and he's buried in Dalgan Park in Navan, where the Columbans have their headquarters in Ireland. The exhibition here consists of Father Edward Galvin's letters from China between 1912 and 1916, when he was writing home to his mother, his family, friends. He wrote a number of open letters to students in Mungret College and in Maynooth, and to other priests, some of whom would go on to become early members of the Columban Fathers. So the first letter in the exhibition is a letter he wrote from Brooklyn in February 1912, when he's telling his mother of his decision to go to China. And it's a letter written in the early hours of the morning of the day he was about to leave. It's a really heartbreaking letter. He asks his mother to forgive him for taking this step, because he feels he will probably never see her again. But he asks her to understand that this is God's will, and he feels he just has no choice but to follow it. He writes a number of other letters to his mother throughout the course of the 4 years he was in China. He's interested in news from Ireland at the time, so the Home Rule Bill, World War I. He's writing about topical issues such as that. And then he's also writing to fellow priests in Ireland, describing the conditions in China, and calling for funds on the one level, but more importantly for priests to come out, because he recognises that France, which had been a traditional source of missionaries for China, really the numbers are falling off, and he sees the English-speaking world as the new source of missionaries for China. He describes Chinese life and culture and civilization, and he gets quite indignant with people who, with the superior European attitude to Chinese civilization, said the only way to deal with Chinese people is to treat them as equals, which I think for his day was quite forward thinking. I think these letters and the archive that they form part of are incredibly important in a number of aspects for the history of religious in Ireland, for the history of Europeans going to China, for Chinese civilization at this time. During the Cultural Revolution, a lot of photographs, artifacts from this period would have been destroyed, so there's actually very little record in China of this period. I think younger people can identify with the sense of adventure as much as anything else, of going out into the unknown. So all these kind of anecdotes, human connections, I think are just really of interest to historians, to people who are interested in, family members who would have been missionaries, and I think even for school children, college students, it's just a fascinating story, and I think there's something in it really for everybody.